Awesome. So, like Bruce mentioned, I am the Associate for Sustainable Living and Earth Care Concerns. And at this point, one of my very favorite parts of my job is getting to resource the Earth Care Congregations Network, particularly the last year in the midst of so many very hard things. It has been such a joy to get to spend time on the phone and via Zoom and meeting with so many people, talking about the passion they have around caring for the earth and what does that look like now that the ways in which they've done that in the past are not an option. And so I was really thankful for the opportunity to get to share with you all a little bit during the break. And I have put my email address in the Earth Care Congregation website here on this slide. And if there are those of you on the call who are not familiar with this program and you have more questions about how to connect your church to the Earth Care Congregation certification, I am happy at any time to talk or email with you about that. But in speaking with the folks that invited me today, one of the things that I really wanted to use this time to do was to really share about how I have seen God at work in the church and in God's people, particularly in the last year or so as we've all navigated these new things. And so, I know many of you on this call are familiar with Genesis 2:15 and the charge that God gives to humankind that translates to this call to guard and to serve creation. And in the work that I get to do with the Presbyterian Hunger Program related to environment, I'm so honored to get to see churches doing that day in and day out. And we know that we can't always address every single environmental problem that exists, and it's easy to be overwhelmed with how big that is. But by the ways in which I've seen churches and people in churches integrate environmental practices and thinking into all of the different facets of the life of their church, I have been honored to see how seriously you all have been taking that charge to guard and to serve the earth. And you've not taken it lightly. And it's been such an amazing process to see the ways in which our care congregations are honoring the worth of creation as they live out the justice of the gospel by caring for creation. So I wanted to start with to say, so I see that in Earth Care congregations themselves, but I also see that in this group. The very first workshop that I ever gave in my whole entire life was at a Presbyterians for Earth Care workshop here in the corner, and I've been honored to gather with you all since. And so I just, for one, as a staff person, just want to reaffirm what a gift this group is and the work and the commitment that you all have done and the ways in which you are also really living out this call. So I just wanted to name that and thank you again for getting to be with you this evening. For those of you who maybe don't know as much about the Earth Care Congregation certification, this certification is given to churches who have committed themselves to take this 4-part pledge that names 4 specific areas in which they will care for creation. So that is in worship, outreach, education, and facilities. And that pledge also affirms that the earth and all of creation belongs to God. It says that we acknowledge that God calls us to be careful stewards of the earth and to protect and restore the earth for its own sake and for the future use of the earth and the enjoyment of all of the human family. And we know that caring for the earth means caring for all of God's people as well as all of the creation. And we know that we can only find environmental justice when there is justice for all on this earth. And so I just wanted to share with you some of the really great ways that Earth Care congregations are living out this pledge day in and day out. One of the some of the best pictures and the best stories that I get to see are from folks doing blessing of the animal services, which I know has been a part of the life of many churches. This is Greg Allen Pickett from the First Presbyterian Church in Hastings, Nebraska. And I think this is one of the more unusual animals that we have seen blessed. This is a crawdad from his congregation, but this has been such a great way to connect with the community around folks when these services are held outdoors and community is invited. We have seen churches that have committed to being electric vehicle stationed. And we know that this has been having cars that are more environmentally friendly have been an important commitment to people who are part of Earth Care congregations. And so we have some photos of some folks from the gathering at Stony Point where they did that. We're also seeing the ways that churches are recycling and composting and making sure that when we gather as a church, even when we could do that under normal circumstances, that that is not coming at the detriment of the planet. The photo here I love is from a church in North Carolina. It's First Presbyterian Church in Asheville, and they held a fellowship meal where this is all of what was the waste from that event is what is on the paper plate there. We are hearing great stories from churches who are using more environmentally friendly lawn care equipment. So not only are they tending their grounds in a way that is more native plant-based and that sort of thing, but how they're caring for it is also more environmentally friendly. This photo here comes to us from Hillsborough Presbyterian Church. And Robin, I believe Robin Bedingfield is her name, and she talked about that the equipment there was so easy for folks to use, and they had more people become interested in caring for being part of their grounds team. And she enjoyed using this equipment so much that that's what she asked her husband to get her for her Christmas gift. And so we love that the stories that we're seeing and the work that's being done in Earth Care congregations is translating to personal changes in their own lives. We also have, as people are doing this work, they aren't only doing it for themselves, but they're recording what the process is. And we know that sometimes as we approach new things, we need some folks to blaze the trail for us and show us how things are done. There is a great example of this. This butterfly is a photo that came to us via the Nature That Nurtures guide, which was done in Pennsylvania by Trinity Presbyterian Church. And a member of their congregation actually put this guide together as they re-landscaped and reused the grounds around their church. And she wrote a guide and tracked that process to help other congregations figure out how to do that process themselves. We also have a story from Shepherdstown Presbyterian Church I believe that they are in Jefferson County, West Virginia. And this congregation, their session decided to release a statement on that opposed the location of a planned rock wool factory. Rock wool is it's a type of stone wool insulation, but that resolution, they were able to do research that cited the concerns that the church had over the air quality, over the impacts to children's health, over what the climate change, what the impact on the safe drinking water would be. The resolution was passed by the session, and then the church was able to take that resolution and turn it into a press release. And then they were also able to use that to get the attention of other congregations in the town. And so they were able to raise this as an issue just by their church making an intentional point to make comment on this. As I'm flipping through these photos, I'm reminded that I wanted to acknowledge that some of you may see yourselves or hear your stories in this. And I just want to thank you for the folks that have shared your Earth Care stories, because they are powerful and they are a great way for us to be able to connect with other churches to see that we hear your stories and we know we know what you're doing, and we're thankful for the ways in which you're allowing God to use you to care for God's creation. These photos are from two churches in West Virginia. This is Spencer, West Virginia, Spencer Presbyterian in West Virginia, and they had a congregation of 7 members that they decided that they were going to install solar panels on their church. And so they were able to work with the Presbyterian Investment and Loan Program, which I think you maybe heard about 2 weeks if you were on the call then, and got a Restoring Creation loan. And they installed these solar panels, and they were able to do a Sunday where they dedicated and committed these panels, and community was able to be involved. And some particular folks that joined them happened to be Glenville Presbyterian Church, which was just down the road from Spencer Presbyterian. And they were a 20-member congregation who had been interested in doing solar panels for quite a while, but the pushback had sort of been that they were too small to be able to make that work. And so then when the 7-member congregation was able to do that, it really inspired them as well. And so they were able to dedicate their solar panels during the Climate Action Week. And what a great way for them to make a statement to their community about where their priorities and where their values are. Something else that we get to see a lot, we know that environmental issues and food issues are deeply connected. And so we love hearing stories about churches that are using their grounds and their skills to not only do good things for caring for creation by gardening and tree planting and that sort of thing, but also using those skills and using that land to be able to feed people. I saw that Brenda commented in the chat before we got started again here that she had had dinner that came from their faith-raised beds. And so we love hearing stories about churches and how they're community gardening, and they're creating green spaces in their communities, and they're connecting planting in dirt and soil with children that may not have opportunities to do that otherwise, and just how important that is for young people to have access to that. And so we've been really grateful for the stories that we've heard about how that is unfolding as well. And Earth Care churches are using their grounds in some really remarkable ways. This story here, this is a large space that was given, outdoor space that was given to Peace Presbyterian Church in Florida, and they have turned this into a nature preserve that has benches and natural arches that have been formed. And so they've created a path so that there are places for people to meditate. They've had stories of people using this as a space as they're recovering from illness or from loss in families. And so creating and caring for this natural outdoor space has also allowed them to be a emotionally healing place for people in their community as they're using that. We love to hear stories of how people are gathering outdoors to worship. Many of you have sent me some lovely photos of your churches worshiping outdoors. This photo is from First Presbyterian Church of Rocky Mount, I believe, in Colorado. We have also loved seeing the ways in which generations are coming together to really learn about caring for God's creation. The photo of the young child here is the intergenerational vacation Bible school that was done at First Presbyterian Church in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And I loved seeing the photos from that and the models of tables of everyone from, I think they said the oldest participant was in their 90s to babies, all being together and learning about what it means for us to come together to care for creation. We also know that advocacy and education are such an important piece of the roles that Earth Care churches do. The photo in the bottom here is from a die-in that was held by Elkin Presbyterian Church. They partnered together with other folks in the Salem and Charlotte presbyteries to make that happen, to make a statement about what the impacts of climate change are going to be and have been already for us. And those were just a few of the stories that I've been really privileged to hold and to share. And I wanted to, the other piece of that is that seeing some of the worship and the writings and the prayers that have come from Earth Care congregations. And so I wanted to share this with you. This came inspired by the Book of Common Worship. And I know that there have been lots of great songs as well as sermons and that kind of thing. So I wanted to share this with you all, but I also thought that I wanted to open up if there are any questions or experiences about the Earth Care certification program that you maybe have specifically that you were hoping I would answer. I really just wanted to use the bulk of this time to share with you how I have seen God at work in congregations as you have lived that out. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, but if there are, and for every story that I have told here, there are dozens that I didn't have time to share. And so if you are someone who has shared a story that I didn't highlight here, just know that has been seen and has been probably used to inspire another congregation at some juncture. So I'm not sure if there.
I see that Jerry Rees has his hand up. So Jerry, did you want to?
Yeah, I have, I guess, two questions. I understand there's over 200 Earth Care congregations. What's the current count now? And have any of these congregations gone on to try to become to the next level and engage with the Green Faith program?
So I believe the number for this year is 268 Earth Care congregations that were certified. We had a few folks that missed the deadline. As far as the Green Faith program, some of those congregations are congregations that chose to be Green Faith certified. And when they shared with us that they had done that, then we count them also as Earth Care congregations because of what those requirements are. They automatically meet the Earth Care congregation certification. In the last few years, part of how that certification work changed a little bit. And so we had encouraged people to explore that further, but I think the exact certification that was being offered at that point is no longer available. They've changed their model a little bit, but we work in partnership with them. Nettie, who you heard from, is on the Hunger Programs Advisory Committee, which is where the work of Earth Care congregation falls under. So we value and appreciate the work of Green Faith, certainly.
We understand there's maybe at least two congregations in our presbytery that certified themselves but thought it was a one-type thing, after which they would remain certified. And I don't think that gets communicated. You have to do it every year.
I am learning. So I took on this particular role about 5 years ago, and I periodically come across folks like that missed the memo about that. And so I worked with several different churches who perhaps they missed a year or two of certification, but we talked together and could see that work has continued still, and that's been an important part of the life of the church. And we just kind of catch them up as far as that's concerned. So if you come across any folks like that, please send them my way. We don't often require people to just start over, and we do our best to communicate with churches throughout the years they're certified that there is a recertification process that's necessary. So I know I get your emails often, Jerry, so perhaps I could offer up something to share in that too, to get another audience to hear that. So I'm
I don't
always,
want to be a tattletale. I just thought I'd bring that to your attention, anonymously.
I appreciate that, and I will do my best to make that more clear. And if you do come across anyone, I'm always happy to chat with them and see what we can do to get folks back on track if need be.
Bob Barrett has his hand raised.
Thank you. I am the chair of the Valley Presbyterian Church in Portola Valley, California, Earth Care team. And one of the things that we just joined the program this year, and one of the things that we are looking to do is to gather best practice ideas from other churches about green purchasing policies and practices. And Jessica, I just wanted to a quick shout out to you for your very helpful response to our inquiry about that. But I thought with so many 105 people online here, I might just cast the net out.
It is nice to put a face with our emails from this week. So it's nice to meet you. I'm not sure how the host of the session, if they would want people to perhaps send some of those suggestions to you in the chat, or if they would like to open conversation for that. So I will defer to them about process for that.
I see our fearless leader Bruce is not here right now. I don't see his video, but maybe Mindy has a suggestion.
That one more time. I was checking to see if anybody was missing from the conference page, and I missed that question.
Oh, maybe some Bob Barrett was asking about churches maybe sharing best practices that they've had, and if there was a good way to do that.
And I just
particularly on green purchasing policies. What we would like to do is for all of our events, everything that we purchase, we would like to have a policy that it is green as possible. But of course, other factors need to be taken into account as well. So we're just looking for ideas.
Oh, Bruce is back.
I might mention that the report update that Jessica sent out earlier this week, she mentioned an organization I'd never heard of before called Blessed Tomorrow. And they have at least 4 flyers, 2-page flyers that talked about what you need to know and what you need to do. That's a great resource. That ought to be shared more widely.
Yes. So Blessed Tomorrow and the Hunger Program have been in partnership for almost 3 years now, and they have several great resources, and those info sheets are a new resource from them. And Bob, did you get that email? If not, I'd be happy to send that to you.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I got your latest email.
Okay, they're in there. Those might be helpful to you as well.
Yep, that's great.
And then I would say later on, I think it looks like there's some networking and other opportunities about perhaps sharing things. So I do want to acknowledge on that Carla Cole, I think maybe has a question or something she would like to add.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Carla.
I'm wondering if what conversations there are with your office and World Mission about connecting Earth Care congregations to partners around the world that are also working in Earth Care in different ways.
So a lot of those conversations, for those of you who aren't familiar, the Hunger Program has a national person, myself, that does sustainable living and Earth Care issues, and then an international person. And so Valerie, our international person, who I know that you know, Carla, has more of those conversations with World Mission, and then that information kind of comes back to me and I'm able to share opportunities. I know one of the things that we have been in conversation with over the last year and a half or so has been in regards to an overture that was supposed to come to General Assembly around tree planting and about the creation of a carbon offsetting / tree planting fund that folks on staff and other Presbyterians would be invited to donate to, and that then we would be able to use that fund to fund World Mission and other Peace USA projects. And so I know that that has been a collaborative effort between our office and World Mission and some local presbyteries. And that is we're working on creating a website so that that can be shared more broadly with Earth Care congregations and other Presbyterians. There was a little bit of a, when that got put to the side as an issue not addressed, there was a little bit of a cart the horse situation, but that fund is up, and I'm actually in the process of working on website development for that. And some folks may have spoke to that a little bit last week, but I think, as is often the case, we can always be doing a better job of communicating, but it is on the radar, and Valerie and I do work together to figure out how what's going on here is connected to other things. One of the things we've been able to offer is some webinars around climate change and disaster. So not just disaster preparedness, but how does climate change and disaster, what does the interplay there look like? And so we were able to feature some of the World Mission partners on that presentation. Thank you for that question. And please know I'm open to any, if there's any work that you're doing that you feel like that group could benefit from, please reach out. I'm open to that. Yes, sorry, Bruce.
Jessica Manley Olson. The question's been raised a few times in the past about whether or not annual recertification is a necessity, and particularly in a lot of churches, the committee is fairly small, and a lot of the information doesn't change. And I know that at least 10 years ago, there was discussion about whether or not this should be a 2 or 3 year kind of thing. Has there been any recent discussion about that?
So I'm not sure if you are one of the people that get my updates, but where we are with that process is that we ask for the first 5 years that people do the certification process with the full audit. After they've done that for 5 years, we ask for just a narrative report. So we just want to know what you're doing. So that can be a paragraph, it can be the report that you submit to the session if they ask for that, or it can just be a story with some pictures about how is your church still living out your Earth Care values. This past year, because we had congregations that were over the 10-year mark, we included the option for people just to be able to say, yes, we are still a congregation that wants to be connected. And so we have heard more feedback that it's helpful to have something annually where people are saying, yes, this is something that's important, but we did understand that at a certain point, it's maybe not as helpful to do the audit version with all of the 200 questions and the points and whatnot. And so that's part of why we switched to either just sharing a story or affirming that, yes, your congregation is still interested. And part of that is just so that I have a contact person that I can send information to, because those folks change periodically. We also invite people to continue to do the audit if they like that as a tracking tool for themselves, but we're really interested in helping people. We want to help do what's most helpful for your church and your congregation. So I'm not sure if that's information you had already, or if that is helpful to you.
Jessica, there's a question in the chat about plastic communion cups.
What do you think of the single-use communion cups? So from our greening guide and from just what we know about single-use plastics and the like, we are historically we have encouraged people to do intinction or reusable cups. With COVID, that has obviously become a different conversation, and you really, we've not wanted to mandate to people how they should handle that. I think reusable cups are an option that eliminates the single use, but if you're not, if you're in a space that isn't an option, there are some, looking for recyclable plastics if you have to do that, or looking for, my own congregation, actually, we recently did a communion where everyone was asked to bring a small cup from home. And it was filled individually as they came in for that time. So I think that there are some ways that we can rethink that and still hold the sacrament of communion well. And so it hurts my heart to see that a lot of people who had been doing intinction have gone back to single-use plastics for health reasons. But again, this is one of those situations that you really have to do the work of that to weigh for your church what is the healthiest and safest option.
We tried to, Village Church tried to do that several years ago. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the problem turned out to be the cups are so small that our recycling processes can't handle them because they fall off the conveyor belt, or they gum up the conveyor belt.
This is all paper cups, and we found this is good. We're in a high COVID risk area, so we can't do, but this, it's a one tripper for the servers. It has both the bread and then juice on top of it. It's cheap, and it's also recyclable paper. So
that is really smart. Will you send that picture to me? Because I've actually been working with several congregations over the last year trying to come up with the best solution for them. I know, and it may even be someone on this call, but I had lots of email back and forth about what it would look like to make compostable, like that compostable material, and make communion cups out of that. And it became beyond my scope of knowing things, but I like the suggestion of using paper cups already and stacking them together.
Also, elderly people have trouble with the smaller cups. So this is chronologically gifted friendly.
Yeah, that's
one of the problems with cups in general is a lot of them are coated inside, which makes them not recyclable or compostable. They have some kind of a plastic coating. You got to make sure not to try to use those.
I think you can find paper ones that doesn't have either wax or paper. They're designed for quick use. We really should finish it up. I remind folks this is being recorded. I had to step away to answer some phone calls, but if you missed part of it like I did, you can watch it all. We will send out a link to the recording probably within the next week or so. So, all right. Any last minute things? Otherwise, we're going to move everybody back to the meeting as the whole. Any final words, Jessica, other than thank you to you?
Just thank you all so much for having me. It's so lovely to see some of your faces. I've definitely missed you, and good to see some faces to go with some names that I have gotten to know this year.